The Galactic Empire declared victory, before the smoke had even cleared. In the capital's grand amphitheater, a floating ring of polished obsidian suspended above a planet-sized metropolis, millions of aliens chanted in triumph. Holograms towered overhead, displaying the Empire's proud announcement for every species to witness. 3 human woman generals eliminated. Peace restored to the galaxy. Fireworks exploded in shimmering spirals. Trumpets, if they could be called that, given they were biological tubes grafted to singers' throats, blared with unsettling enthusiasm. Children of a dozen species waved banners depicting the Empire's sigil. A delegation of beetle-like Vorthons danced by clacking their shells. It was a celebration built on absolute confidence and absolute ignorance. The footage of the assassinations played on loop, grainy, distant, and undeniably staged for maximum propaganda effect. Each clip froze on the lifeless forms of the 3 human generals, haloed by smoke and collapsing structures. The crowd roared as if the images were scenes from a beloved holiday festival. Somewhere among the sea of cheering citizens, a thin, scholarly Draffian leaned toward his companion and whispered, "Humans will send a letter of protest, perhaps, or a fruit basket. They enjoy such gestures." His companion frowned. "Fruit baskets? So I've heard. Their cultures are very domestic." The statement was ridiculous enough to be believable, at least to the Empire. A ripple of movement cut through the amphitheater as the Imperial Herald announced the arrival of the human representative. Many attendees perked up, not out of respect but curiosity, like observers waiting to see how a small, injured animal might behave. Into the spotlight walked Ambassador Elena Hale, a woman in her late 30s, her black hair pulled neatly back, her diplomatic coat buttoned with unnecessary precision. She looked calm. Too calm. Her expression rested somewhere between courteous interest and a patient, private amusement, an expression that unsettled those who paid close enough attention. But very few did. Attempts at mockery began immediately. "Ambassador," called a brightly feathered Avialan general. "We regret your, tiny military setbacks. Do humans require a moment to grieve?" Elena's smile widened by exactly half a millimeter. "Thank you for your concern," she said softly, her voice floating across the amphitheater like a warm breeze carrying a blade hidden inside. "Humans value empathy deeply." A few diplomats exchanged confused glances. They could not tell whether she was sincere or sarcastic, because her tone remained flawlessly polite, almost soothing. The Imperial Prime Speaker stepped forward, eager to display dominance. "Your generals were fearless, I admit," he proclaimed. "But they were misguided to challenge the Empire. Consider this an opportunity, Ambassador. You may now advise Earth to surrender peacefully." "Surrender?" Elena repeated, eyes bright with something unreadable. "Is that your recommendation?" "It is the only reasonable course of action for your species," the speaker replied, puffing himself taller. "Do not misunderstand. We bear humans no personal hatred. But your people lack the temperament for war." A tremor of amusement flickered at the corner of her mouth. "Temperament is such a curious word," she murmured. "Where I'm from, we say, 'You don't poke the bear.' But since the Empire seems fond of wildlife metaphors, perhaps another phrase fits better. 'If the forest goes silent, something is already hunting you.'" Her words spread through the chamber like a draft of cold air. Some species shivered instinctively. Others laughed, assuming her comments were merely poetic nonsense. The Empire's military minister stepped closer, towering over her. "Ambassador Hale, I assure you humans lack the capability to retaliate. Even now, our sensors report no fleet movement from Sol. You are powerless, yes?" "Perhaps," she conceded lightly. "Humans rarely move in straight lines. Our approach to conflict is multifaceted." She offered a diplomatic shrug. "We prefer not to inconvenience others with dramatic displays." The minister barked a laugh. "Dramatic displays? Humans? You can barely maintain a planetary defense grid." "Yes," Elena said, still smiling. "And yet, oh so strangely, you seem anxious." The minister's mandibles clicked irritably. "Nonsense. The Empire fears no species, least of all yours. Elena clasped her hands gently behind her back, the picture of composure. Then may I offer a courtesy warning? Murmurs swept the amphitheater. A warning, delivered so calmly, so politely, felt more unsettling than a threat. The speaker chuckled. By all means, Ambassador. Entertain us. She inclined her head with impeccable diplomacy. Thank you. Humans are not as fragile as you assume. We adapt. We strategize. And above all, we respond. Maybe not loudly. Maybe not immediately. But certainly. And what response can Earth possibly offer? The minister scoffed. We've neutralized your leadership. Elena tilted her head. You neutralized 3 women wearing uniform coats. You did not neutralize what they stood for. Something shifted in her eyes then. Not rage, not grief, but something deeper, sharper, older. It was the look of someone who had already accepted the worst and prepared for the aftermath with unnerving clarity. The amphitheater quieted around her, though no one consciously decided to stop cheering. Silence simply crept in, unnoticed until it felt absolute. Tell me, Ambassador, the speaker said with a forced laugh. What exactly do humans plan to do? File a complaint? Protest in front of the embassy? Request therapy support? Elena offered a small, thoughtful breath. We will not protest. So what then? We respond proportionally. The minister snorted. Proportionally? You expect us to believe Earth can strike at the Empire with equivalent force? No, Elena replied. Humanity doesn't do equivalent. We do correction. For the first time, several high-ranking officials glanced at one another in genuine unease. They couldn't explain the sudden weight of her words. A junior military commander whispered, She's too calm. Humans aren't calm when grieving. Another whispered back, Perhaps they process emotion differently? Or perhaps, murmured a third, she's hiding something. Elena took a single step forward. The amphitheater's holograms flickered, capturing her silhouette against the star-filled sky. Allow me one final comment, she said, voice soft enough that the entire audience leaned in. Please advise all Imperial citizens to remain indoors tonight. Not for our safety, she added gently, but for yours. The speaker frowned. Is that a threat? A suggestion, she replied. One I hope you take seriously. On what grounds? The minister demanded. Elena studied him for a measured moment, then offered a smile so gracious it bordered on unsettling. On the grounds that humans are notoriously unpredictable when grieving. She turned elegantly on her heel, coat brushing softly against the polished floor. Her footsteps echoed lightly, too lightly, given the storm her words had stirred. As she reached the exit platform, she paused just long enough for her final line to carry across the amphitheater. Check your long-range sensors. The crowd exchanged puzzled stares. The Empire's dignitaries scoffed, but several technicians immediately received orders to run diagnostics. Moments later, alarms began flashing silently across command terminals. Screens that had been filled with triumphant propaganda shifted to red overlays. Dozens of Imperial officers frantically tapped commands. Their eyes widened in disbelief. Unidentified signatures were appearing at the edges of Imperial space. Hundreds. Then thousands. All matching one unmistakable design. Sleek, angular ships with thermal profiles cold enough to evade detection until the last possible second. Human ships. But they were not entering from Sol. They were emerging from angles no Imperial fleet had ever patrolled. One officer whispered, trembling, How long have those been there? Another voice answered, Long enough. And from the distant hallway where Elena Hale had just disappeared, her final words echoed faintly, almost tenderly. This was your last peaceful day. The amphitheater, moments ago roaring with celebration, fell into a terrified silence. The Empire celebrated too early. And now, for the first time, they understood what that smile on a human's face truly meant. The alarms had not yet faded when the Empire's war councils convened in a panic. The holographic chamber, usually a place of ceremonial arrogance, now thrummed with static as officers from every corner of the Empire scrambled to interpret the impossible. Human fleets, hundreds of them, blooming across imperial borders like invasive stars. Not from Earth. Not from any known human colony. From places humans were never supposed to reach. The Minister of Defense slammed his claws onto the strategy table. How did hundreds of human warships appear inside our perimeter without detection? His mandibles clicked furiously, betraying tension he tried to hide. The analysts exchanged nervous looks. None wanted to speak first. Finally, a young Tyrillian officer, scales pale with fear, cleared her throat. "We don't know, Minister. These formations weren't recorded entering from any gate or corridor. They simply materialized." Materialized? The Minister repeated, incredulous. "What are they, ghosts?" "No, sir," she said quietly. "Just humans." That answer unsettled the room more than any tactical report could have. Across the galaxy, humans had been labeled as a predictable species, loud, emotional, annoyingly sentimental, and technologically middling. The Empire had studied them for decades, confident in their limitations. Yet these new ships defied all known schematics. Sleek, angular, heat-suppressed hulls designed for predatory ambush. Not even the most paranoid Empire models had ever predicted such capability. A grizzled reptilian warmaster leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "Pull up the assassination reports again." The hologram switched to the footage of the 3 fallen human generals, each death choreographed by the Empire with cold precision. The warmaster watched in silence, then murmured, "Something is wrong with this footage." The Minister scoffed. "Wrong? It shows our success." "No," the warmaster said. "It shows our mistake." He pointed to the background of the scenes. "Those are not active military zones. Look closely. No fortifications. No secured perimeters. No countermeasures. These generals were exposed. Too exposed." The chamber went still. A realization simmered, dreadful and quiet. One officer whispered, "You think the humans allowed this?" The warmaster didn't blink. "No one rises to the rank of human general by being careless." The Minister tried to laugh, but the sound wavered. "Allow me to remind you, humans are impulsive creatures." "Impulsive creatures," the warmaster interrupted, "do not position fleets across 3 sectors in perfect synchronicity. Nor do they hide those fleets so thoroughly that we didn't detect them until Ambassador Hale suggested we check our sensors." The name rippled through the room. Elena Hale. The woman who spoke softly, smiled politely, and carried the unsettling composure of someone holding a knife behind her back. One strategist replayed her warning. "Please advise your citizens to remain indoors tonight. Not for our safety, but for yours." The Minister swallowed hard. Perhaps she was bluffing. The warmaster glared. "Do you still believe humans bluff?" A silence heavier than gravity fell. Elsewhere, across the Empire's fractured territories, alien commanders watched the same impossible readings appear on their tactical screens. In the Lorien Straits, a squadron of avian warships spotted human cruisers coasting silently above their mining worlds. In the crimson fog fields of Sector Day 9, human carriers glided like patient predators. Near the Empire's western arm, a battle group emerged from dark space. No jump signature, no corridor, just sudden presence. As if humanity had discovered how to fold the galaxy like a bedsheet. And every ship bore the same message, broadcast on a loop. Calm. Simple. Correction underway. The phrase spread through Imperial ranks like a contagion. Some species reacted with disbelief. Others panicked instantly. A few, the wise ones, simply bowed their heads in resignation. Back at the Central Command, analysts scrambled to understand human behavior. Charts, psychological profiles, cultural notes, and military predictions flickered across screens. The more they searched, the more contradictions they found. Humans were emotional yet logical, peaceful yet violent, chaotic yet calculated. Nothing aligned. A historian spoke up nervously. According to their archives, humans once survived in environments filled with predators. He gulped. Large ones. The minister frowned. So what? They evolved to fight things bigger than themselves, the historian whispered. And they didn't do it with strength. They did it with creativity. Another analyst added. They're also extremely stubborn. A third chimed in, and terrifyingly social. If one is harmed, the others respond disproportionately. That, the War Master growled, is the part you should be afraid of. The chamber's atmosphere tightened as a new transmission arrived, a live feed from one of the Empire's frontier garrisons. The officers crowded around the hologram. Static buzzed, then resolved into an image of a trembling alien soldier, his armor scorched, his voice shaking. Command! Do you read me? Humans have touched down. The minister's claws froze. Touched down where? Everywhere, the soldier whispered. There, coordinated. Silent. Smiling. In the background, human marines swept across the landscape with disciplined precision. Not shouting, not raging, just moving with unsettling harmony. Their armor glinted under the pale sun, marked with symbols unfamiliar to anyone in the Empire. Plasma blasts echoed faintly. Alien fortresses crumbled. One marine paused to wave cheerfully at the camera. The soldier screamed as the feed cut to black. Several council members recoiled. One fainted. Another muttered a prayer in a dialect long considered extinct. A shell-backed ambassador whispered. Humans shouldn't be able to do this. They shouldn't exist like this. Yet they did. In the midst of rising panic, a private communication chimed on the minister's console. An encrypted link. Human origin. He hesitated, then accepted. Elena Hale appeared in a small hologram, serene as ever. Her expression radiated the same politeness that unnerved diplomats earlier, but now it felt sharper, like glass under moonlight. Minister, she greeted. I hope your citizens have taken my suggestion and remained indoors. The streets are dangerous today. The minister sputtered. Ambassador, this is an act of war. Elena tilted her head slightly. No. This is acknowledgement of war. You declared it when you murdered 3 of our best. The War Master stepped forward. Ambassador Hale, how many fleets do you control? Elena smiled faintly. Control? None. Humans don't control grief. We channel it. The minister's voice cracked. We didn't anticipate humans could deploy forces in this manner. That is evident, she replied gently. But you should have. Humans adapt. Humans prepare. And humans, especially humans in uniform, do not die without leaving plans behind. The War Master's breath stilled. Plans? MHM, she hummed. Those 3 generals you killed? Each had already uploaded her strategic mind map into our tactical networks. Their final actions weren't miscalculations. They were openings. The room erupted in chaos. Elena's eyes softened with something almost like empathy. You believe their deaths weakened us. But in truth, you activated them. Activated? The minister echoed weakly. Consider it their final gift, she said. A trigger. A signal. A call to every human who ever served beside them. Her gaze sharpened. And we answered. Her hologram flickered, but her voice remained clear, almost tender. I must go now. More. Corrections await. But before I leave, there is something you should know. The minister dared not breathe. Elena leaned slightly closer, her tone still polite but holding the weight of a storm. These fleets you see? They're not our main force. The hologram dissolved before anyone could respond, leaving behind a suffocating silence. Every officer in the chamber turned slowly toward the central screen as new alerts flooded in. Larger signatures emerging from dark space, dwarfing the initial fleets, forming shapes the scanners struggled to classify. Not hundreds. Thousands. And they were all human. The first human drop pods slammed into the Empire's borders like divine hammers, streaking through alien skies with incandescent fury. To the naked eye, they looked like burning stars ripping toward the soil. To Empire commanders, they looked like the end of everything they had ever assumed about humanity. Each pod hit ground with bone-shaking impact, cracking the crust of worlds that had stood unchallenged for centuries. Dust rose. Silence followed. Then the doors hissed open. Human marines stepped out. Not frantic, not screaming, not bloodthirsty. Calm. Disciplined. Their armor bore the insignias of the 3 fallen generals. A circle split by a downward slash, the mark of those who died in the line of duty, but left unfinished business behind. Their helmets reflected the chaos around them. Cities burning, alarms wailing, alien soldiers scrambling without strategy. The humans moved like water flowing downhill, every motion purposeful. One Marine knelt beside a trembling Empire soldier crouched behind a broken wall. The alien shielded its face with shaking claws, expecting execution. But the Marine only sighed through his helmet speaker. "Hey," he said gently. "You don't need to die for people who lied to you." He tossed the alien a small beacon, the tiny device glowing green. "Follow that signal. It's the evacuation corridor. If you get shot by your own officers on the way, just say you surrendered to us. They'll be too scared to verify." The alien blinked, stunned. "Why, you're letting me go?" "Letting you?" The Marine said. "I insist." Then he added, almost cheerfully, "We're busy today. Lots of structural corrections to make." That same pattern happened everywhere. Humans sweeping across battlefields with terrifying ease, carving through fortified lines as if they were drifting through fog, yet sparing any soldier who dropped their weapon. They fought like artists sculpting a masterpiece, efficient, elegant, merciless only toward those who refused surrender. It terrified the Empire. Human mercy, they realized, was not kindness. It was strategy. It was control. It was the power to decide who lived long enough to witness the consequences of aggression. In Sector 9, a squad of Empire officers watched from a tower as human infantry breached their final barricade in under 90 seconds. "They should be raging," an officer whispered, clutching his command tablet. "Their generals were killed. They should be out of control, emotional, broken, unpredictable." "They are unpredictable," another replied in a thin voice. "Just, not in the ways we counted on." Down below, humans deployed shimmering walls of light, portable fields that pinned Empire war machines to the ground. Tanks floated helplessly, limbs of mechs dangling like toys caught in midair. The sound of battle became a rhythm. The thud of boots, the sizzle of plasma, the distant crack of collapsing spires. Human voices filtered through the comms, casual, almost bored. "Squad 7, don't break formation, we're sweeping left." "Squad 4, 2 stragglers behind the debris, they've dropped weapons." "Copy. Guide them to Corridor Green." Empire officers stared in horror. How are they coordinating across entire continents?" "They're networking their minds," someone whispered. "Humans link through emotional bonds. They feel each other." The idea alone sent chills through the room. Back on the Empire's capital world, the Prime Speaker watched feeds from the battlefronts with mounting dread. He had expected retaliation, of course he had. But not this level of precision. Not this level of restraint. Not this level of terrifying clarity. When Elena Hale appeared on the central broadcast, he nearly cried with relief. She stood on the bridge of a human command ship, galaxy-wide firestorms illuminating her silhouette. "Prime Speaker," she began softly, "you look unwell. Are you resting?" He snarled, "What do you want, human?" "Want?" She raised a brow. "Nothing. Humans didn't start this war. We simply arrived where you pushed us." "You call this arriving?" "This is annihilation." "Oh no," she replied gently. "If we intended annihilation, you wouldn't be here to complain." Behind her, officers moved with silent purpose. No panic. No hesitation. The calm before something monstrous. Elena folded her hands. "There is something you must understand about us. Humans don't seek vengeance. We seek balance." Her voice dipped, soft as a sigh. "You took 3 of our brightest minds. That was not balance." The speaker's throat vibrated with fear. "Then what is your end goal?" "Correction," she said, the same word that echoed across every human transmission. A world without the architects of this atrocity. The speaker trembled. We acted within our rights. Those generals were threats. Everyone is a threat to someone, Elena murmured. But not everyone is foolish enough to force a species like ours to evolve. The war master behind the speaker finally spoke up. Ambassador Hale, we underestimated your capabilities. We underestimated your fleets. But surely you do not wish for a genocide. Elena's gaze hardened. No. Genocide is sloppy. Her tone carried a chilling honesty. Humans prefer surgical outcomes. Precision. Mercy for those who deserve it. And for those who don't? The War Master asked quietly. Her smile was faint, but it cut deeper than any weapon. We remove them. The broadcast ended. Across the Empire, the tide turned into a tsunami. Human forces breached orbital rings, dismantled shield networks, disabled dreadnoughts with surgical EMP bursts that left the behemoths drifting like fallen titans. Empire garrisons crumbled. Planetary governors begged for instructions that never came. But the strangest part, the part that broke morale faster than human bullets, was the relief. The Empire's citizens, terrified of their own leaders, began to welcome the invaders. When human transports landed in residential zones, crowds gathered instead of scattering. Mothers clutched their children, praying to be spared. Old veterans dropped to their knees, whispering surrender in trembling voices. And humans spared them. A human medic kneeled to treat a wounded alien child on a street where two armies had clashed moments earlier. The child's mother sobbed uncontrollably. Why help us? The medic smiled beneath her visor. Because your leaders made a mistake. You didn't. The mother reached out with shaking hands. Will you kill the ones responsible? The medic glanced toward the horizon, where the sky burned red with the silhouettes of human warships. We'll handle it. Reports flooded into the Empire's capital from every sector. Entire armies surrendering. Former loyalists switching sides. Citizens refusing imperial evacuation orders, and instead forming lines to greet human peacekeepers. The Empire was collapsing from the inside, undone not by brute force but by the terrifying mix of human mercy and human wrath, each delivered precisely where earned. In the central palace, the Prime Speaker's personal guards begged him to flee, but he refused, pacing frantically. We must negotiate, he whispered. We must appeal to their pity. The War Master shook his head. They pity civilians. They do not pity architects. A guard rushed in, breathless. Sir, we've lost the final defense ring around the core. A human flagship breached the perimeter. They're coming here. The speaker froze. Which ship? The one broadcasting the insignia of the 3 dead generals. His blood ran cold. Far above the capital, a single human ship drifted through scorched clouds, a black spear of metal, silent, waiting. Inside, Elena Hale stepped toward the viewport as the city came into view, its towers trembling under distant fire. Her reflection glimmered faintly in the glass, eyes sharp, heart steady. Open the channel, she said quietly. Her officers complied. Below, Imperial sensors detected the transmission. A single human sentence echoed across the capital, soft as a whisper and sharp as a blade. Your mercy expired the moment theirs did. And then, just as the speaker inhaled to respond, every Imperial screen flickered with a new set of signatures. Unknown. Enormous. Approaching at impossible velocity. More human forces. But these were different. The new signatures moving toward the Empire's capital world were unlike anything the scanners had ever processed. They were larger than carriers, faster than interceptors, and eerily silent, like shadows cast by a sun no one remembered seeing. The Prime Speaker felt his throat tighten as the readings stabilized. Thousands of vessels, each broadcasting a simple identifier, one that should have been impossible. The IDs belonged to the 3 dead human generals. A collective shudder rippled through the War Council. Officers fumbled with their consoles, double-checking encryption layers, searching for glitches, anything that might explain the absurdity before them. But the data held firm, each line confirming the same terrifying truth. The Empire had not destroyed human leadership. They had triggered it. In the sky above, the first of the phantom fleets emerged from dark space like rising leviathans. Their hulls shimmered with the tactical engravings of each general, patterns once worn proudly on their uniforms, now etched into warships that hadn't existed yesterday. On one prow, the script of the first general read, "Her fight lives on." Another bore the symbol of the second, "We end what you begin." The third ship's engraving felt colder, simpler, balanced through fire. Elena Hale stood at the center of her command deck, watching the arrival of the ghost fleets with a stillness that felt carved from stone. Her officers remained silent, sensing the gravity of the moment. Something in her gaze softened, something like grief, though sharpened into purpose. "They're early," she murmured. "Yes, ma'am," her captain replied. "They activated the moment the Empire confirmed the kills." "It means they predicted everything correctly," Elena said quietly. "Right down to the hour." The captain hesitated. "Do we proceed to Phase 3? Elena's expression turned colder than vacuum. "Yes. Open the broadcast." A chime echoed as the channel reached the palace. The prime speaker appeared, shaken, sweat shining beneath his scaled brow. He didn't attempt bravado this time. "Ambassador," he croaked. "We didn't know humans possessed such machines. There must be some mistake." "No," she replied gently. "There rarely is when humans plan something." The War Master stepped into view. His voice was steadier than the speaker's, but fear lingered beneath it. "Those fleets, they carry your general's signatures." "How?" Elena folded her hands, speaking with the calm patience of a teacher explaining a simple truth. "Project Backfire. A classified initiative designed by the 3 women you murdered. They predicted that if Earth grew strong, the Empire would feel threatened enough to strike first. So they crafted a contingency, one that required their deaths to activate." Silence stretched through the channel, brittle and suffocating. The speaker's voice trembled. "You're telling me they plan to die?" "No," Elena corrected softly. "They planned for the possibility that you would be foolish." Her words carried no anger, only certainty, which made them all the more terrifying. The War Master's eyes narrowed. "What does Project Backfire do?" Elena's lips curved into a faint, solemn smile. "It turns your victory into your undoing." Before anyone could respond, alarms thundered through the palace. The ghost fleets unleashed a synchronized cascade, a lattice of shimmering blue beams that connected like a web across the planet's upper atmosphere. Imperial ships tried to flee, but the beams passed through them harmlessly, leaving no damage. No explosions. No fire. And that terrified them more. "What are they doing?" The speaker shouted, panic breaking through his voice. Elena answered without looking at him, her gaze fixed on the growing luminous grid above the world. "They're sealing your borders. Every jump gate, every hyperspace corridor, every escape route tied to the Empire's central network, closed." On screen, Imperial ships flailed like insects caught in amber as the warp lanes collapsed around them. Their engines sputtered. Their stabilizers died. One by one, the great vessels fell into powerless drifts. The War Master's composure cracked. "You've disabled our entire defense grid." "Only the parts you would have used to run," Elena replied. "We prefer our conversations uninterrupted." A crash sounded from somewhere in the palace as soldiers scrambled in disarray. Officers shouted commands that no one obeyed. Fear, that ancient and democratic force, consumed the Empire's highest hall. The speaker grasped at the edge of the console, voice shaking. "Please, we surrender. On all fronts. Just call off your forces." Elena blinked slowly, weighing the words. "You misunderstand the nature of surrender. It assumes you still possess something worth offering." The speaker collapsed to his knees. "Then what do you want?" Her expression softened. Not with pity, but with the finality of a judge delivering a verdict. Not genocide. Not domination. Only correction. She stepped closer to the screen. "Your citizens were not our target. They did not walk into this trap. You did." The War Master bowed his head. He understood. The speaker, however, began to sob. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I only wanted to eliminate a potential threat. Elena's voice remained steady. And in doing so, you activated a far greater one. A new tremor shook the palace as the ghost fleets descended lower, their engines humming with restrained power. Waves of light pulsed outward, sweeping through the capital like a tide. Buildings glowed with temporary blue halos as energy signatures locked onto every Imperial command node. It was an occupation, not destructive but absolute. Elena nodded once to her officers. Initiate the reclamation protocol. On the planet below, the ghost fleets deployed thousands of small, dark devices, gravimetric anchors that embedded themselves into the soil. Each one sent deep pulses through the bedrock, disabling weapons, imprisoning warlords, severing communications. The Empire's infrastructure folded silently, methodically, like a map being closed. The speaker trembled as the lights flickered overhead. What happens now? Elena regarded him with a calm that chilled the room. Now? You answer for the deaths of 3 women, who built the only trap in history designed to catch an entire empire. Please, he whispered, voice cracking. Have mercy. At that, Elena's expression finally shifted. Not cruelty, not triumph, something colder and older. Something earned. We already gave mercy, she said softly. You spent it. The comm link cut. Outside, the ghost fleet slowed to a halt above the capital, silent, watching. Then, from the farthest edge of the collapsing warp network, a new signal appeared. Different from the fleets, different from anything the Empire had encountered. A single human ship. Not military. Not stealth. Not aggressive. It drifted steadily toward the capital, unshielded, unarmed, its hull painted with the emblem of Earth's mourning. 3 parallel silver lines. Elena inhaled sharply. It was the ship carrying the families of the 3 fallen generals. And they had come to witness the end.